Hi, this is Brendan Ferguson. I'm a designer and writer.
And this is Dave Grossman, and so am I.
David Bogan, art director.
And I'm Heather Logus, and I did design and writing for episode 5.
So, this episode is green.
Green.
And also there's the presidential DeSoto with its little flags.
That's right. Look at that. The seal on the door. Did you notice the seal? There it is.
Beautiful. Is that the actual correct seal of the United States?
Well, I think we took a liberty or two with that seal.
I couldn't remember if the real one had cigarettes on it or not.
It's probably trademarked anyway.
Cash, booze, and cigarettes.
Unrest in the Dakotas.
And also they have other remnants of Max becoming president last time.
Illegal immigration.
I just like the thought of Max on the floor with a knife just cutting it out.
Policy is too giant battle robot based.
They can take it up with my new press secretary.
So this was fun to do since Max is now president, and we got to write an opening scene that was sort of addressing the fact that he is president, but still leaving them in their same silly office.
Total collapse of the economy and downfall of Western civilization.
So here we are again, continuing to start off an episode with a hand-animated cutscene. We feel it's a really good way to just kind of drop you into the story and give you a good quality visual to start off each episode with.
Planes are falling from the sky. Nuclear reactors are nearing meltdown.
And scores of pasty white nerds will be forced to go outdoors and socialize with normal people.
And at some point, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've actually switched over to the Telltale tool to finish off the cutscene. As I mentioned before, it would take far too long to animate an entire dialogue for 5 minutes or whatever it is in Maya.
Because Sam and Max do tend to run on a little bit when they're talking.
They're very wordy.
Lightning bolt! Lightning bolt!
Stand back, Max. It sounds like Sybil's finally cracked.
So this is probably my favorite episode, just because I play a lot of computer games, and it's really fun to...
Really? You too?
Yeah. It's really fun to work in a lot of those references. Especially I think there's something about computer game culture that sort of enjoys mocking itself.
True that.
And those weird glasses are it.
Launch stinging BBs!
He's talking about recognizing hypnotic devices, but we actually were, I think, slightly inconsistent in our treatment of the way that the hypnosis actually works in this series, but anytime you do run across it, you get those little green swirlies somewhere to tip you off.
Or I-beams.
Or I-beams.
Of some kind.
Or we just say, this is hypnosis, don't ask questions.
This was fun. It was sort of showed some of the limitations of the physical world that we work in, because we had to make this cannon way bigger than we really wanted to, just so that Jimmy could actually fit inside of it.
Yes, we run into that problem quite a lot.
Yes, we're always making a design to say, oh, and then a person's entire body will deform and fit into whatever shape we so desire. And poor Dave Bogan says, yeah, that actually happened.
It's quite a challenge to keep up with the designer's thoughts. How do we portray a rat being shot out of a cannon when he doesn't fit in the cannon? So, yeah. I'll point out as many of those things as I can.
Just so that we can feel shame.
Payback.
I wasn't hypnotized. I was playing a computer.
We do tend to think a little bit like we're making Warner Brothers cartoons or something. Everybody can stretch as much as we want to.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of things that are challenges that we can solve, but it all has to work within our time and our budget, and is it really important to add that stuff in?
Yes, it always is.
Always, yes. Always focus on the most important parts, and the story points, little gags here and there might not be so important. But they're cool to get in, if you can do it.
These guys were too fun not to bring back from episode 4.
Yeah, they're great.
No, this is the first time we've ever seen them.
Yeah, you're right.
There's a twinkle in my eye.
You're right, I'm wrong.
You meant...
These guys were too fun not to bring back from episode 5 into episode 6, which we'll do next.
Foretelling the future. We're psychics.
So, you just sit around and make each other feel better about yourselves?
Of course.
These guys all have 3 names. They have the name that's on their name tag, like Bob or Chippy or None of Your Business or whatever. And then some of them have, like Bluster Blaster, for example, has a name that's printed on them. And that one does too, Ping. And then there are the internal names that were written into the script before we had any of the art done and knew what any of the other names were going to be, which are things like Synth and Bleeps, and this guy's actually called Sinistar, which is, of course, somebody else's trademark, so we can't use it publicly, but
we just did.
Here on the commentary,
Whoops.
You can know that internally we call
that. Doing the lip sync for these guys is kind of interesting, actually. Each character is very, very simple. Bleeps has the blinking light. He's got the oscilloscope kind of thing going on. And I'm rambling, and the picture's gone again. But
really
basically,
think of it as lip sync, strangely.
Yeah, basically, it took quite a lot of work to get that stuff to work, actually, because it wasn't a traditional like mouth with joints and bones that you could open and close. We basically had to use the Telltale tool and turn and move, like scroll textures and things like that with the tool, which is quite difficult and time-consuming.
But we do it with a smile.
Yes.
Because we love you.
Now here's the part where Dave and the other artists had to invent a completely new, disparate art style right in the middle of the season.
I think this is the part where Dave wanted to stab everybody.
This is where I had a heart attack. But it worked out, and if the designers didn't push for this kind of look, it wouldn't have happened. So we ended up at a very happy place, and an episode that had just a completely new look to it, which was great. It was kind of inspired by just old video games, and of course Disney's Tron movie from years ago, and just little elements from the internet, like floating icons and scrolling simple art thingamabobs.
We also, in the commentary that the internet character gives, we get in some good digs against the sort of general concept of design by committee.
Hey, wait. Internet? Hello?
Yes, that's the worst thing ever. We must never design by committee.
From now on.
By large committee.
Here's a cheap Mario gag.
Sell out.
Love it. Very nice.
Let's put this new miracle diet to the test, shall we?
Now this is cool where they turn flat. This is one of the things where, from the design perspective, we want to do these things where we turn them flat and small, and we actually thought it would be a bigger problem than it was. And I think it was John Scrow just demoed it in 2 seconds, like, oh yeah, here, they're flat.
Well, it was easy to make them flat. It
nice.
was less easy to deal with all of the implications of them being flat, which sort of messed up some of the cameras and meant they could do certain things. Actually, being small was actually more of a problem. A lot of places you can't go because you're small.
Like climbing onto the step of the front door of the office.
For example.
We'll take that long sword, if you please.
5 gold.
I think the Bosco's interior is one of the best environments in this. Just because it has this really nice cross between an EverQuest-y type MMORPG game, and then it kind of dissipates off into more of a Tron-ish look.
Take care! The enemy draws nigh. He may be closer.
Bosco's a cool elf.
Yeah. Bosco's got great lines in this.
Hey, Bosco, this longsword you sold us doesn't work.
We thought it was really funny for some reason that you would buy a sword from Bosco and just turn around and use it on him very first thing.
Who came up with the name El Bosco Drill?
I forgot.
I think that was probably Brenda.
That's a pretty crazy name.
Oops, our mistake. It does work.
Well, that was embarrassing.
Boy, do we have egg on our face.
I really like the poster.
Welcome to Bosco's E-Convenience.
I don't know if this switches to his real store here.
Spawn point?
No, but Kim made this great picture with Alphania, who's this like sexy elf, and it's signed to Bosco.
Yeah, we rely so much on the environment modelers to make the world exciting. Typically, I'll say something like, I don't know, make it look cool and fun. And those guys will just come up with so much stuff, and we'll have brainstorm sessions and talk about what could be in there, and we'll come with lots of ideas, but we're always relying on them to figure out how to make it all work and fit together, and they always do such a brilliant job.
An example of that is the floating posters in the background. A lot of the time, the environment artists are actually coming up with the gags for the posters and little objects you see in the environments. It's a collaborative process.
Yeah, actually, there was days of brainstorming about those pop-up ads everywhere.
I have a +2 sword.
You're just compensating for something.
You're a fine one to talk. Entering combat.
I do know that sometimes like Cam has better taste than me, so suggestions that I make she doesn't end up putting on the walls, but I just slip them into the dialogue somewhere as the alternate branch if you look at the mailbox or something after an antibiotic is gone.
It's funny to see how ideas evolve too. Usually when stuff comes fresh out of the design package, if you will, it goes through a few weeks of art and design, and like for example the sword there started out as just a +2 sword, and somehow it got turned into a crazy unicorn sword, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love the fight sequences in this game too.
For some reason, that's one of the things that I had been thinking about for so long for Sam Max, is the thought of seeing them in these RPG battles. So that it finally occurred in episode 5 was a dream
I
fulfilled.
think we just gave Bosco $1 billion.
That ought to buy a few cans of reconstituted luncheon meat.
I read
The great thing about this episode also was just the opportunity to use some pretty surreal lighting.
It's a good thing I don't read, or I'd be perpetually freaked out by stuff like that.
On the street and inside Bosco's and the office and Sybil's, the lighting, it is different from scene to scene, but it's pretty similar. It's got to feel like the same world. But since we were allowed to dive into this video game world, it really opened up the possibilities for all that stuff.
So this thing with the software disease was actually kind of a big deal at the company for a little while, because we had designed the episode around this idea that you were going to introduce a virus and email it to the entire internet and bring it crashing to its knees that way. And then somebody, Dan or Kevin, just started imagining the inevitable post on the forum that was going to read, "Hey, did you play episode 5 and did you get the virus yet?" And then that somebody else who had never seen the game was going to Google about it and find that message and create a widespread panic. So that's why we don't actually ever use the word virus in
That is the
conjunction
whole
with that.
reason we made this episode.
And that's why we don't talk to Dan or Kevin anymore.
Unless we have to.
There go the graphics.
This sequence
love
turned out
this.
really awesome too.
Yeah.
And it hopefully leads into the
Text adventure.
Yes.
This was my favorite part. Mostly because I got to do a lot of it. But this was one that was really, really risky. At first we thought, oh, okay, it's just going to be text. It'll be super easy to implement. And it turned into this huge nightmare.
Maybe because we had to have it still be interesting and visually compelling in some way.
Yeah.
To me, that was the most risky part. The fact that we're ending an episode on a text adventure, where games have progressed away from that for the last 20 years, and we're here returning to it. How can we make this look visually exciting and keep the player interested and have them actually want to finish the game?
I think it... Go ahead.
It's
Sorry.
a good success, I think. It's just interesting to make them walk around into the different colors of the text and having them jump up and down between scenes. A lot of good ideas in there.
And I think this one, I would come into the office on some days and hear little murmurings that we're having a meeting about whether or not we really want to have this in there. And I think it came close to getting cut many, many times. But I'm really happy it made it into the final game. So I think it's really
I've ever
fun.
seen anything like this before. We pioneered again.
We are so awesome.
It's retro pioneering.
It's really cool. Super happy that this stuff made it in.
Yeah.
This was another dream of mine. a very big fan of text adventures. Still am. I still play them. I love them. So seeing Sam Max in this world was yet another of my dreams. Unfortunately, my subsequent dreams become much more risque, so subsequent episodes start veering to territory. Questionable.
The irony of which does not escape even me.
Oh, good. I thought I was the only one really savoring that.
I saw that reality.
So after you've played the text adventure, we again end it with a hand-animated cutscene, just to give a really nice capper on the episode, and to set up the next episode.
Uh-oh.
Did you just kill the internet?
It's not your fault. This never would have happened if he hadn't tricked me.
Who?
Well, you won't have this sentient global network to kick around anymore, Roy G. Biv.
Yeah, I'm loving all the ways that Sam Max ended up destroying the world in some way. Max just becoming president in and of itself is pretty injurious to
Goodbye.
everyone's sense of reality.
But it's always for the greater good.
It's for the
somehow.
greater good. I mean, sure, I have to ruin a country, but at least we stopped some random guy.
Whoever you are.
But I think that one was actually part of the whole Sam and Max being good guys thing, where
Yeah.
we thought it was too mean for them to just kill the internet.
Yes.
We had to explain it, you know.
Are you still president?
Who is that?
I don't know. I can't wait to see
The man in the
Suspicious.
moon?